All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we are going to begin with our first appearance misdemeanor calendar, also called the Expedited Accusation Calendar. This is for today, Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. I am going to address each case on a one-on-one basis. These are new misdemeanor cases in which individuals were recently arrested and booked at the Fulton County Jail. Upon being booked in, their cases have now been formally accused by the Solicitor General's Office of Fulton County. When I call each case, I'll let you know what's your new accusation number, what are the charges brought against you, as well as to appoint counsel if necessary, and to set a bond. I'll also give some folks a new court date if they are unable to make their bond. Depending on the individual's criminal record history as well as the nature of the charges, certain individuals may qualify for what we call a signature bond or a release bond. In that case, you won't have to pay for the bond today, but you must comply with certain conditions. Failure to comply, or if you get arrested again, will result in a revocation of your bond. Others may possibly receive what we call a surety bond or a cash bond. In either event, you would have to pay for the bond out of your own pocket or through a bonding company. Please remember that when we address each of your cases, you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you say during the course of this virtual court proceeding, your statements can and will be used against you. These proceedings are not only being recorded, but live streamed as well. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you. Ms. Bridgewater, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
All right,
The
and
date for the SAP calendar is February the 18th.
okay, got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is that a Tuesday or Thursday?
That's Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. All right, courtroom 1 or courtroom 2? Or
Good
ACD?
afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Judge Law. I hope you're doing well. We're going to start here at ACDC with position number 12, Deja Green.
Okay, thank you, Bridgewater. Let's start with position 12. This is State versus Deasia Havana Green, accused of criminal trespass and simple battery. Her case number is 25 CR 5808. Ms. Green, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
16. Should have went to court earlier for burglary. Got an open shoplifting out of the cab, open shoplifting out of Henry County. Another open shoplifting out of the cab, possession of tools as well. Open shoplifting out of Gwinnett. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. 2021 simple battery, first offender. 2014 battery conviction. I'm gonna go find out what happened with that burglary.
All right, sir. Miss Allen, yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Thank you. This is an incident that happened on February the 4th at about 12:45 p.m. Police were called to 1670 Stanton Road, Southwest. The CAD report notes that there's a large crowd of people on the scene, an active dispute in the background during the call to 911. On scene, they met with the victim. Her name is Makiah, Makiyyah Alexander. Her front door to her residence there at 1670 was damaged as a result of this defendant coming into and trying to force her way into that location, engaging in a fight with this young woman. So she's charged today with a simple battery for striking this young woman and for damaging her front door. The victim was trying to close her door to prevent the defendant from coming in, and the defendant broke that door trying to make entry. You did hear that she was on felony first appearance today. She's got multiple prior convictions for simple battery and battery. We're asking for a $4,000 surety. That's $2,000 on each count. No contact with the victim. Again, her name is Makiyyah Alexander, and to stay away from that Stanton Road address. We'd ask for anger management. Your Honor, We did speak to Mrs. Alexander. She said that during the argument and incident with this defendant, the defendant grabbed her child and threw him on the ground. I would note that the police report and documentation is still in progress, so there could be further charges, Your Honor. If you'd sound for Ms. Alexander, thank you.
Ms. Makaya Alexander, if you're on Zoom, this will be your time to unmute and start your video. All right, Mr. McLean?
Oh, and was Mr. Howard finished? He was going to check on that other thing.
Just
10%. She got a 10% bond.
okay.
Okay.
Just FYI, the case number is 25.
Your Honor, Miss.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just giving
Verizon,
you the case number.
My Verizon. Gotcha. Okay. And I'm glad I'm first up because I wanted to announce before we started that Mr. Golding and Mr. Wilkerson will be waivers of presence. And I think it's good to get those out of the way first because that way there won't be any suspense when they're skipped over and the calendar and all that. Okay. Your Honor, Ms. Green is 29 years old. She has a stable mailing address on Legacy Drive. She has 2 phone numbers that are good. Friends and for emergency and as well as her own. Her record in terms of arrest is what Your Honor has heard. She's got an 11th grade education and she's working on her GED. While associated with First Step, which more than one person today is associated with First Step, you know, they have temporary jobs and sometimes more permanent jobs for people. They're located on Edgewood Avenue. I've actually been over to their place. It's a good organization. We would ask that there's bond or any bond that is reasonable under these circumstances. Our main argument being the nature of the charges. We'd ask for as low a bond as possible.
All right. Anything else? On each count is going to be $1,250. Total bond is $2,500. It is a surety bond. Next court date is going to be February 18th. No further contact with Makaya Alexander. Stay away from 160 Stanton Road, Northwest. And no illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. Thank you.
Position number 13, Hammock.
Allison Hammock is case 25CR578J, accused of battery from June 2nd of 2023. Ms. Hammock, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
Second. 2019 forgery in the 4th degree, first offender.
All right. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from June of 2023. The incident occurred at the intersection of Northside Drive and Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway Northwest. Police were called by the victim. Her name is Alexis Tate. She reported that as she was sitting in a red light there at the intersection with her driver's side window down, she realized someone was walking up onto the side area of her car. The defendant, who had exited a red Nissan, walked up, screamed at the victim sitting in the driver's seat of her car, "Don't ever come near my kids again," and then proceeded to punch her through the open window. The defendant's daughter also joined her mother and started reaching through the window and pulling the victim's hair. The victim recognized after a short period of time, because she was honestly in shock, even though she'd never met the defendant, she identified her as a woman who shares a child with the man that the victim is dating. So the victim, in this case, Alexis Tate, is dating a gentleman that this defendant has a child with, and evidently she thought she should just approach somebody in the street at an intersection. She was identified with surveillance footage from the incident, as well as through recognition software and the gentleman she shares a child with. Scratches were seen on the victim's face as a result. That's why this is a battery. We're asking for a $2,000 SOB through pretrial. Absolutely no contact with Mrs. Tate, no drugs, anger, or weapon, or drugs, excuse me, alcohol or weapons, and we'd ask for anger awareness class, Your Honor. We did speak to Mrs. Tate. She reports and confirms what happened. She says she'd never met this person before, but understands that they have a shared acquaintance. She'd like no contact. And if you'd sound for Mrs. Tate. Thank you.
Alexis Tate, if you want to say something, you would need to unmute and start your video. All right, Mr. McLean, anything to add?
No. No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
Bond is set at 1,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services level 1. She'll need to complete 1 anger awareness class, have no contact with Alexis Tate, and to stay away from wherever Miss Tate happens to live, work, or happens to be physically standing. Ms. Hammock, no illegal drugs, no firearms, and no alcoholic beverages. You report to pretrial once a month. If you fail to report or if you get arrested again for anything else, your signature bond will be revoked and adjusted to a cash bond or a surety bond. Thank you.
Judge, that was a pretrial, correct? Level 1?
Correct. Signature pretrial level 1, correct.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes with ACDC. Courtroom 1, who do we have, please?
Number 8 is
Right.
Esp-
This is Mabetsi Espinal, accused of fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer from July 4th, 2024, in case 25 CR 576Y. Ms. Espinal, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Ms. Kim. Any prize, Ms. Howard?
17. Wanted out of Cherokee County. On probation in Hall County for obstruction. Gwinnett County robbery and ag assault. 2023-2022 probation. 2019 battery interference with government property, felony obstruction conviction.
That's good. Thank you. Ms. Mokeke, good afternoon.
Yeah,
Any
Your
recommendation?
Honor. Yes, Your Honor, just to put the facts on the record briefly, officers received a ROC, that's ROCC camera notification for a vehicle registered to the defendant for an active probation violation warrant. Officers located the vehicle traveling eastbound on Holcomb Bridge Road, and they observed the defendant driving. They activated their emergency equipment to activate a traffic stop, and the defendant made a sharp right turn and accelerated at a high rate of speed, almost causing multiple collisions in the process. Officers estimated that the defendant was traveling at speeds of over 100 miles per hour. The defendant currently has a $3,000 surety bond. We are asking that that surety bond remain the same. No drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond.
Ms. Kim, is this going to be a $2,500 signature bond through the jail
Okay,
with a release to any of the pending holds?
sure.
And she's not allowed to drive a motor vehicle unless she has a valid driver's license, adequate insurance, and proper registration. Ms. Espinal, this is still an open, active case, even though you have a signature bond through the jail. And the reason is because we're going to release you to any of the other jurisdictions who have holds on you. But you need to make sure that you report back to Fulton County when summoned, which means that we have to have a current mailing address and contact information of you at all times. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 1, last name Barnes.
This is Mark Barnes, accused of cruelty in the 3rd degree, battery, family violence, and criminal trespass from February 3rd, 2025. Mr. Barnes, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Ms. Kim. Mr. Howard?
And got an open case in Superior Court. It's 24 PI 002-983. Possession of a firearm during the commission. Possession of marijuana, DUI. Possession of a controlled substance and drug-related objects. 2019 FTA, 2018 obstruction conviction, 2018 vandalism conviction, and 2017 reckless conduct conviction. That's it.
Thank you. Do you know the reckless conduct involved a firearm too?
I'll look.
Okay,
That might have been out of state. I'll check it out.
thank you. Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes, Your Honor, I have that the incident location is 6385 Raymond Terrace in Union City. The victim in this case is Anglisha Barnes. Officers arrived at the location and spoke with the victim, who informed them that her and her husband, the defendant, were having a verbal dispute over car keys when they began pushing each other. The victim then went outside to remove herself from the situation, and the defendant threw a candle holder at the glass door, causing it to break. The victim then went to her daughter's room to get her so they could leave. And as she was walking into the living room with her daughter in her arms, the defendant pushed her and caused her to fall onto the shattered glass that was on the floor. The victim did sustain abrasions on her leg as a result. Our office has spoken with Ms. Barnes, who confirmed that her and the defendant lived together at the incident location and they share no children. She also confirmed the events in the warrant and told us that she also sustained some bruises on her legs as a result of this incident. She states nothing like this has ever happened before. She's not in fear of the defendant and she wants no violent contact, but she does want the defendant to stay away from the residence. The state's recommendation is a $3,500 surety bond. No further contact with the victim at this time. Give them some time to cool off, as this just happened on the 3rd. Stay away from the incident location, as the victim has requested no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond, and that he undergo an FBIP or some anger awareness.
The reckless is out of Cobb County. So.
Thank you. Ms. Kim?
I believe Ms. Barnes is on the line, Your Honor. I apologize if
yeah.
it's down for her.
Ms. Anglisha Barnes, if you want to contribute to these proceedings, you would need to unmute and start your video. All right, Ms. Kim?
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 31 years old. He was born and raised here in Georgia. Even though he graduated from high school in Tennessee, he has been living here in Georgia for more than 15 years continuously after graduating from high school. And he has been working at home improvement projects for the last 4 years. Your Honor, he has no objection to stay away from that location, incident location. He plans to move back to his mother's place. He does have a good phone number and address and contact information. We would like to request for signature on bond through pretrial level 3. He does not need to have a one-time law enforcement officer escorted visit because he has nothing to bring it out from that location. He is okay with no further violent contact as well. Thank you.
Thank you. On the cruelty matter, that's going to be $1,000. On the battery, it's going to be $3,000, and those two are going to be surety bonds. On count 3, criminal trespass, that's going to be a 500 signature bond through the jail. The total is a 4,500 split bond. No further contact with Anglisha Barnes. No further contact with the child or children that he shares with Miss Barnes until further order of the court. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. And his next court date is going to be February 18. No further contact means he also needs to stay away from 6385 Raintree Terrace. He may return to that location one time only with a police officer to retrieve his personal belongings. And then after that, within 30 days of being released, he must provide the court with a new mailing address. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, did you say that was a split bond?
Yes, count 1 is $1,000 surety, count 2 is a 3,000 surety, and count 3 is a 500 signature bond through the jail.
Thank you so much.
Position number 16, Mr. Phillips.
Paul Phillips is accused of criminal trespass and public drunk from February 1st of this year, case number 25CR568J. Mr. Phillips, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is going to be Mr. McLean or somebody else.
It is Mr. McLean, Your Honor. He should be coming in soon.
Thank you.
I just need to start my video again.
No problem.
It is my case, Your Honor, yes.
Thank you.
He got 11 total. Last arrest was last month for trespass. 2024 trespass conviction. He just got put on probation for that. 2024 FTA, 2024 unlawful conduct during 911 call, and a 2023 theft by shoplifting trespass.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. You did just hear from pretrial. The defendant entered a plea to a criminal trespass case on January the 7th of 2025 at the same location. 24 CR 008-239F is criminal trespass at the Chevron gas station. He'd been criminally trespassed there in October of last year, 2024. He now is on probation and has been ordered through that probation now case to stay away from the location. On the 1st of February, he was on scene harassing gas station customers, had been previously told and ordered by the court in that case to stay away, and he was obviously intoxicated when police encountered him. We'd asked for a $2,000 surety, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons to stay away from the location, and we'd asked for a MHET.
Mr. McLean?
This reminds me of how Queen Elizabeth II once said she had the annus horribilis, the worst year of her life. And in 2024, everything's going wrong. He went to Creekside High School, graduated in 2002. He's out of trouble for so long. And all of a sudden he gets all of this stuff. It's terrible. He's been cold, he's unemployed, but he's had good jobs right up until when he became unemployed. He's just going through a really, really rough patch. He's been a forklift operator and a machinery operator that operates the recycling machines that tear up glass and aluminum at Coca-Cola Company. When he worked for Pepsi, its competitor, he worked as an order picker. Before that, he was working for a mailing company. That covers his last 5 years of employment. He could use a break. We need a social worker on this to give him some advice. I would definitely recommend the social worker visit, but I would like to ask for a signature on.
The address specifically, Your Honor, is 6129 Old National Highway, the Chevron gas station there.
Oh,
Right. He's got a mailing address on Surrey Court. I don't know how close that is, but
I see that. I do see that. Thank you. Mr. Phillips, on the criminal trespass, that's going to be $1,000 surety, and the public drunk, that's going to be a 500 signature bond through the jail. Your total bond is going to be 1,500 split. You are already on probation. Oh, no, sorry, you are not on probation from the previous case, but you were clearly cautioned to stay away from the Chevron gas station at 6129 Old National Highway. The condition to this bond is to stay 500 yards away from the Chevron gas station at 6129 Old National Highway in South Fulton. If you're seen within 5 football fields of that location, you could be back in jail for violation of this bond order. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and your next court date is going to be February 18th. Ms. Allen, please make a note, but the court is not going to consider balance suspended unless you have something else that you all want to make an offer.
So his current case is 12 months after the service of 36 days, balance suspended for 12 months and to stay away from that location?
Yeah, but it was balance suspended, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, next case.
Number 2, Braxton.
Come on, this way.
Kuwan Braxton, his case number is 25CR571Y. Mr. Braxton has got the following 7 misdemeanor offenses stemming from a traffic incident of October 4th, 2024. The charges are speeding, failure to use a seatbelt as an adult, improper passing, driving while license suspended or revoked, willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer, giving false information to an officer, and fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer. Mr. Braxton, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Ms. Kim. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
24. He got an open shoplifting in Athens, Clark County, and in Cobb. On probation for shoplifting and obstruction. They gave him 10 years out of Cherokee County. 2025 FTA, 2024 and 2023 probation, 2023 FTA, another 2023 probation, 2021 ag battery arrest, 2019 contempt of court conviction, 2018 probation, 2017 FTA, and 2017 theft by receiving conviction.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes, Your Honor. Officers observed the defendant traveling 94 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. They also observed him passing several vehicles from the right. Officers conducted a traffic stop and observed that the defendant also wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He provided them with the fake name of Kamani James and the false date of birth of September 30th, 1998. The officers then asked the defendant to step out of the vehicle, and he refused to do so. The officer opened the door, and the defendant began to get out of the car. And as the officer reached for his arm, he pulled away, put the car in drive, and then drove away with the officer's Terminator stop stick attached to the vehicle. It was later discovered that the defendant's license is also suspended. The state's recommendation is a $3,500 surety bond, no driving without a valid license, and the proper documentation, no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond.
Mr. McLean?
That's actually my client, Your Honor.
I'm so sorry. Yes, sorry about that. Go ahead.
He is 25 years young, and he has been here in Georgia ever since he was 7 years old. 18 years in Georgia. He graduated from Northbridge High School successfully 2017. He was a very good basketball and football player. Your Honor, he has been employed at Jiffy Lube as a technician. He changes oils, and also he has been an assistant manager. He has been in jail ever since October 4, 2024. Cherokee County 4 months because of his probation violation. Cobb County 2 weeks. Clarks County 2 weeks. And then he finally came to Fulton County. And of course, Your Honor, I just want him. He understands that it's been a very long time for him, has been in the jail. So we would like to request for signature on bond, pretrial level 3. These are mainly traffic violation, and that's what we would like to request for. He has a good address, phone number. His mother is here as well, here in Georgia. He's not a flight risk.
All right. On each count is going to be 500. His total bond is going to be 30,500. It is a surety bond. Reset date is February 18th. No driving and no operating any motor vehicle until further order of the court. Next court date is February 18th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Position number 4, Mr. Clark.
Your Honor,
Is it Roy Clark?
yes, Your Honor, this is a conflict case. I apologize.
I've got it as position 5. Position 4 is Jamontes Kane. Deputy, did you mean Clark or Kane?
Clark, number 5 then.
No, I just want to be sure I'm addressing the right person. Okay,
Clark.
Clark. Okay. This is State versus Roy Clark, case number 25 CR 574H. Mr. Clark is accused of battery, family violence from May 27, 2024. Mr. Clark, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Maureen McLeod. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
Fifth arrest, 2017 ag assault dismissed, and an 01 probation.
Okay. Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes, Your Honor. I have that the incident occurred at 180 Chapel Road Northwest in Atlanta. The victim in this case is Miss Amanda Adu, who shares children with the defendant. Officers responded to the incident location and spoke with the victim, who advised that her and the defendant were arguing about her clothing choice from the previous day and about money he gave her to pay a neighbor. She states the argument turned physical when the defendant struck her in the face several times. The victim advised that the defendant hit her at least 4 times and her face was swollen and there were scratches under her nose as a result of the assault. The officer did note that the victim had visible injuries to her right eye and also to her nose. Our office has spoken with Ms. Adu, who states her and the defendant are not in a relationship. They do not live together, but they do share 2 children. She stated that the incident occurred because she attempted to discipline the defendant's children, and the defendant followed her and started grabbing her to get away from his son. She states that she exaggerated the incident and denies the defendant hit her in the face. She states that she sustained the cut on her eye from the defendant grabbing her, but she denies that she had an injury to her nose. She states that nothing like this has ever happened before. Her and the defendant have been in contact since, and there has been no violence. She is not in fear of the defendant and wants to continue contact. I would just note that that 2017 ag assault that was dismissed, 17 SC 148734, did involve the same victim, Miss Amanda Adu. In that case, the defendant was accused of grabbing her by the neck and trying to choke her, leaving visible marks on her neck. So they do have some violent history. The state's recommendation is a $3,000 surety bond, no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond, an FBIP or some anger awareness, no further contact with Miss Amanda Adu. And I would just ask the court to sound for the victim.
Ms. Adu, I do see you on Zoom. If you want to contribute to the proceedings, you need to unmute and start your video. Ms. McLeod?
Yes, Your Honor. I would be seeking a signature bond for my client. Is 61 years old, has absolutely no convictions on his record. He tells me that the previous arrest arose out of allegations that were inaccurate at the time, Your Honor. And he also tells me that in this instance, he did not put his hands on the alleged victim. He was just trying to protect his son. So I think it's appropriate for him to get a signature bond, Your Honor. We are okay with it being through pretrial.
No.
Nothing further.
On the battery family violence, it's going to be a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services. And this is going to be a level 2. He will need to report to pretrial twice a month. Within 30 days of being released, he will enroll and complete a domestic violence intervention program. And these are 26 weekly classes that he must attend and complete at his expense. No further violent contact with Amanda Adu. He may return to the home that he shares. No, he doesn't share it.
He doesn't share a home with her, Your Honor.
And if he has any children with Miss Adu, he needs to file a legitimation action to establish visitation and joint custody. Otherwise, he has no rights to visit or have any contact with the children unless Miss Adu agrees to it. So any contact with the children he shares with Miss Adu will be completely up to Miss Amanda Adu. And if she says no, he would have to respect that decision. Otherwise, he's free to file a legitimation action if he wants to have a court order establishing a parenting plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Position number 9, Mr. Fortune.
Curtis Fortune is accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property and willful obstruction of an officer on February 2nd, 2025. Case number is 25 CR 577E. Mr. Fortune, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Kim. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
Third. He was arrested in 2023 on some capital charges. They were dismissed out of Douglas County. 2022 obstruction, FTA, interference with government property, theft by receiver. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Mulcahy?
Your Honor, the incident location is 4828 West Park Circle in Atlanta. The victim in this case is Tamika Jeter. The defendant is accused of putting shaving cream on the rear window of the victim's vehicle. And when officers tried to detain him, he pulled away and attempted to flee on foot. Our office spoke with Miss Tamika Jeter and her husband, Mr. Khalid Jeter. She states that the defendant is their nephew and they used to live together at the incident location. They were putting the defendant out of the residence and the defendant kicked their back door, causing damage to the door frame and also threw some trash in their backyard. They state they want no contact with the defendant and want him to stay away from the residence. They state the defendant's mother has retrieved his belongings, so there is no need for him to return to the residence. The state's recommendation is a signature bond, no further contact with Tamika and Khalid Jeter. Stay away from that incident location, no drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. And I would ask the court to sound for Miss Tamika Jeter.
Ms. Jeter, you are on Zoom. If you want to say anything else, you need to unmute and start your video.
I'll say something.
Mr. Jeter, please raise your right hand.
I don't think he was a victim of the case, Your Honor.
It was his house as well. He's Miss Jeter's husband.
And it was my car.
I'll let him speak. Mr. Jeter, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes,
All right. We've already gone through the allegations. Would you just confirm that you want Mr. Fortune to stay away from you and your wife and your resident?
that is correct.
And does he have any personal belongings still at the property?
Not anymore. No.
What do you mean by not anymore?
No, he had a bag, but it's going to his mother's house.
So you are bringing it to his mother's house?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as you know, has his mother agreed to take him in?
No, she has not.
She has not told you, or she's not agreed?
She has not agreed.
Okay. So he's not even allowed at his mother's house, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I guess that's problematic. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jeter. You may mute your screen.
Okay. Can I also make a recommendation as well for like anger management or something like that? Or
Appreciate it.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kim?
Yes, my client, Mr. Fortune, is 23 years old. He was born and raised here in Georgia. He has been working several different jobs, and last 1 month he has not been able to have any jobs. But he graduated from high school from Marietta, Georgia. He was a track player. We would like to request for just one-time law enforcement officer escorted visit to have his personal belongings retrieved. He does not want to have his stuff dropped off at his mother, who he may not be able to contact, and he does not want to lose his personal belongings. He was expecting to get at least 30 days of notice as a tenant of the place, but without any eviction process, he was just simply kicked out. And we have no objection to signature on bond, Your Honor. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. The criminal trespass causing damage to property is $1,500. On the willful obstruction of an officer is $1,000. His total bond is going to be $2,500. And it is a signature bond through pretrial. Level 2. He will report to pretrial twice a month. No further contact with Khalid and Tamika Jeter, and he is to stay away from their residence. And I'm sorry, Ms. Mokeke, I didn't catch it. Was 4828 something?
West Park Circle.
Okay. And he's required to stay 200 yards away from that location as well as from the Jeters. He is not allowed a one-time visit to the Jeters residence. If his property is at his mother's location, he's allowed a one-time visit to his mother's location with a police officer to retrieve his belongings. If his belongings are not there, he must peacefully leave the premises. Otherwise, he could be arrested for trespass at that location as well. He is to enroll and undertake a BH or behavioral health evaluation and submit himself to any treatment that's required within 15 days of being released on a signature bond. In other words, he would need to go to a physician, a hospital, or clinic or urgent care and see where he may obtain a BH evaluation and submit himself to any treatment. He's also to enroll in 12 and complete 12 anger management classes, and he will do so within 60 days of being released. He must show proof that he's enrolled in those classes within 2 months of being released, and to also update the court with his new mailing address within 30 days of being released. All right, so that's a lot of updates that Mr. Fortune will need to provide to the court in addition to reporting twice a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Number 11, Grant.
Jason Grant is accused of battery, family violence, and simple battery, family violence from February 2nd of this year, accusation 25 CR 582F. Any priors on, oh, sorry, Mr. Grant's been advised of his rights, and his attorney is Mr. McLean. Mr. Howard?
Ninth arrest, 2020 possession of marijuana, NOLO. 2018 FTA. Yeah, the 2018 battery arrest. I'm not sure what that disposition was. 2011 forgery first offender.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. That 2018 simple battery was dismissed when the court dismissed it as a victim was not available in court when ordered. This is an incident from the 2nd of February. The address is 3327 Penny Lane, apartment B. I'll note that that's not the address the defendant provided to police. This was in East Point at the Penny Lane address. The victim's name is Tarlisha Williams. Police were called to the location based on an assault. While they approached the address, the defendant was detained. He was leaving as police arrived. They spoke to the victim, Mrs. Williams. She described the defendant as her spouse and her husband. She said that they had argued because she told him she wasn't going to give him any more money. He was not contributing to the household. While they were arguing, he grabbed her violently and shoved her. And when she fell, she scraped. She had multiple abrasions on her face as a result. We're asking for a $2,000 surety bond, Your Honor. No contact with the victim, Mrs. Williams. Stay away from that location. Again, the address is 3327 Penny Lane, apartment B, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons. We did try to reach out to Mrs. Williams and left a message with her mother. We haven't been successful in actually talking to her yet today, but we'll continue those efforts. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. McLean?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Jason Grant is 44. He's been in Georgia since 2008, so he's pretty local now. He graduated high school in Dumfries, Virginia, at Potomac High School. He has the arrest record. He acknowledges what was read out in terms of the arrest record. The work history of this gentleman is Amazon, doing the picking and packing off the belt. He's done that for several months now. Before that, he worked as a warehouse forklift operator. Before that, he worked at Walmart doing stocking of goods. And before that, worked at MARTA doing power washing. So he's pretty industrious. His Arapahoe Trail address is not associated with the Ms. Williams. And he agrees that there should be a stay away, and he'll get his mail at Arapahoe Trail in College Park. We would ask the court to consider a signature bond. If that's not possible, then a $1,000 surety.
Does he share any children with his wife at the present time?
I'm not sure. Mr. Grant, do you have any children with Ms. Williams?
Oh, sir.
Was that a no?
That was
Yeah.
enough.
Okay. On the battery family violence, that's going to be $3,000. On the simple battery is $1,000. That's a $4,000 signature bond for pretrial, level 2. Mr. Grant, you have a signature bond, but you'll be required to report to pretrial twice a month. Within 30 days of being released, you are also to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. And these are 26 weekly classes that you must attend and complete without missing or skipping any of the classes. No contact with Talisha Williams, to stay away from the entire apartment complex or location at 3328 Penny Lane, especially apartment B in Atlanta, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and firearms. If you get arrested again or if you violate any of these conditions, your $4,000 signature bond will be revoked. Next court date will be sent to your mailing address, so please update us of your new mailing address within 30 days of being released. Thank you.
Number 14, Mr. Kellum.
Brandon Callum is accused of battery family violence from February 3rd of this year, case number 25 CR 579Y. Mr. Callum, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
Second, open simple battery out of Brookhaven from 2024. That's it.
Thank you. It's 2024. Okay. Ms. Ms. Howard?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from the 3rd of February. The victim's name is Elizabeth Guevara. Police were called to 2819 Laurel Ridge Circle. That's an address in East Point. On scene, they observed the defendant and the victim both there arguing, and they were separated. They both described themselves as live-in girlfriend and boyfriend. The defendant denied that anything was physical going on. The victim reported that there had been a verbal altercation and argument, and it escalated when the defendant grabbed her and shoved her to the ground. She was seen to have bruising on her chest. A witness on scene told police that they'd captured part of this incident on video, and police documents state that they observed on this video the victim aggressively shoved the victim, or the defendant aggressively shoved the victim in her chest, shoving her to the ground. We did see that other open case in Brookhaven from a year ago, and we spoke to the victim, who reports that she and the defendant have been in a relationship. She did have marks on her body and on her chest specifically. She said this hasn't happened before, and she says she's not in fear of the defendant and wants to continue contact, but ultimately that's not what she said to him on the jail calls. She actually admonished him, and he apologized for hurting her and wanted to know why the neighbor was saying they had this on video. We'd asked for a $2,000 surety, Your Honor, to stay away from that location and have no contact with Mrs. Elizabeth Guevara, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while on bond. And if you would call for her, Mrs. Elizabeth Guevara. Thank you.
All right. Miss Elizabeth Guevara, is that correct? If you want to contribute, you need to unmute and start your video. All righty. Mr. McLean?
Hello. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I just found out how to unmute it. I'm sorry.
You need to also start your video.
Mhm.
All right. Did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to say that I didn't have it. I just wanted to pursue with no violence.
Right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I swear.
Do both of you occupy 2819 Laurel Ridge Circle?
Yes.
All right. And are there any children that you both share?
No.
All right. What would you like to tell us?
I just wanted to say that earlier when I spoke, I said I didn't mind having contact with him and that we had spoken prior, not prior, after the incident had happened. I just wanted to pursue with the no violent thing that the woman has said to me.
What does no violent mean?
Like I didn't she explained that. I just wasn't sure what it meant. She told me there was two options.
I'm asking you, what do you think no violent means after you were explained what they are?
Like no more violence, like no more altercations, no more domestic issues. Like I don't want that.
How do we prevent that?
Well, I don't know how y'all I know how I'm gonna prevent it. I'm just not gonna put myself in that place.
And how is that?
Right now, me and him are just gonna separate for a little while, but I don't want to lose contact with him because I know I have some of his belongings as well.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you, Ms. Guevara. You may mute your screen. Thank you. Mr.
Your
Mc-
Honor, I would also add that the victim shared that she's been evicted from the location at this point and she's left that location.
All right, thank you. Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, Brandon Kellum is 28. He's been in Georgia for 8 years. He's been off and on, and in the last few years on, but he's had Georgia community ties for 8 years. He graduated in Rochester, New York from Bishop Kearney High School. He has worked as a security guard at Phillips and Reverb and FL Stanton School and Chipotle and several other places. He would ask the court to consider a signature bond.
Okay. On the battery family violence, that's going to be a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial services, and that's going to be level 1. No further contact with Elizabeth Guevara, which means you are to stay 200 yards away from Miss Guevara and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. You may return to 2090 Laurel Ridge or 2819 Laurel Ridge Circle. If you still have an apartment there, your first visit must be with a police officer to, number 1, verify that Miss Guevara does not live there, and number 2, that the leasing office is still permitting you to live there. So these are the 2 conditions that must be met in order for you to return and live at that location. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. And within 30 days of being released, you're either going to, no, you have to update us with your new mailing address or confirm your mailing address. And the second thing you have to do is enroll in a domestic violence program. And this is a 26-week program, and you will have to attend each of those classes without missing or skipping them. All expenses for those classes will be paid for by you. Thank you. Next case, please.
Number 18, Smith.
Okay. DeMarcus Smith, is that correct? All right. Mr. Smith is accused of simple battery, public drunk, and willful obstruction of an officer from February 4th, 2025, accusation 25 CR 585A. Mr. Smith, you've been advised of your rights. Your attorney is Mr. McLean. Mr. Howard?
I got 27 total. 2015 possession of marijuana, that was dismissed. 2015 terroristic threats, trespass, dismissed. 2014 obstruction, driving without a valid license, conviction. 2011 FTA and several probations in the history.
Okay. Any arrests in the last 5 years?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
look and see again, but I don't think so.
All right. Ms. Allen?
He was arrested in May of 2024 for an aggravated assault when he pointed a firearm at a woman named Janice Ennis, and that was dismissed, Your Honor. That's 24 PI 003512.
All right.
This is an incident that occurred on the 4th, early morning, 1 a.m., around 3601 MLK Jr. Drive Southwest. A 911 call was made stating that the defendant was threatening people with knives and was under the influence. Police responded and in a marked vehicle identified the defendant based on the description that had been given by the 911 caller. He was in and around the area of an apartment building near the gym there. There's also a bus stop there at the location. He was seen by police with a large blade in his hand, aggressively banging on an apartment door. That apartment door was identified to be the apartment of his brother, Quintavious, who was also the 911 caller. Police were unable to make contact with Quintavious, but did speak to the defendant's parents, who also live in the neighborhood. And while police were on scene, they made contact with the victim, Tracy Howard. He reported that he'd been at the bus stop there near 3601 MLK Jr. Drive when the defendant approached him, obviously intoxicated and speaking in an unintelligible and aggressive manner, and then started striking him with a stick. He was struck in the leg and the back, and he identified the defendant as the person who had assaulted him. The defendant had a large blade in his hands when police encountered him. It was actually what's called a drywall saw, and it had pieces of drywall still stuck to it. The defendant told police, although very intoxicated and having multiple empty bottles of alcohol in his possession, that he had gotten angry with his brother Quintavious because Quintavious wouldn't join him in a fight against the victim, Mr. Tracy Howard, evidently the man he assaulted at the bus stop. You're asking for a $6,000 surety. That's $2,000 on each count. No contact with either Quintavious, I'm guessing Smith, or Tracy Howard to stay away from that location, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons. We'd ask for a social worker visit and possibly an MHET. We did try to get in touch with family members and Mr. Howard. We were not successful yet today. If you'd sound for anybody related to this gentleman, please.
Okay, Tracy Howard is the only name I can think of, but if you're present, this will be the time to unmute and start your video. No? Okay, Mr. McLean?
Your Honor, thank you. He is Georgia all his life. He's 34 years old. DeMarcus Smith has a 10th grade education.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. We're having technical difficulties on our end. If we could get about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, please.
No problem. Thank you. Mr. McLean, I understand that you have 2 waivers, correct?
Golding and, correct, Your Honor, Golding and Wilkerson.
All right, let's start with Wilkerson, and that's position 20.
Yes.
So I'm going to waive sounding on the charges. This is Ronald Wilkerson, arrested and charged with 2 misdemeanor charges, including one being a PI charge from December 16th, 2024. Ronald Wilkerson's case number is 25 CR 566J, and he's represented by appointed counsel, Mr. Michael McLean. Mr. McLean has waived his appearance. And any priors, Mr. Howard?
8 total. We got an open PI charge in state court from last year. You want the case number?
Yes, please.
24 CR 003 923J.
Thank you. That's
hold on. He got another open case. He went to felony earlier. He got no bond for that charge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 20.
Case number?
I'll pull it.
Okay.
2024 FTA, and he had an 02 CWAC conviction.
Well, the 2024 FTA, the open state court case, and the open felony. Ms. Allen, what's your bond recommendation, please?
So, Your Honor, the defendant has 2 cases, position 20 and 21, and they have identical charges. One is from December, and the other is from February the 4th.
I forgot.
He was arrested. He was seen to have an active warrant.
Okay, oh, yes, you're correct. Same charges from February 4th, second accusation, 25 CR 567J. All right, so what's your recommendation?
We're asking for a $3,000 surety on each of the cases, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, to stay away from both of the victims and the location. The first one is the library at Auburn Avenue. That's around 135. That is for position number 21. And number 19, the Lindbergh MARTA station at 2424 Piedmont Road, and to stay away from all MARTA. The victim in that case is Johnny Nguyen, Nguyen, and the victim in position number 21 is An Nat Lam. No drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and we would request a mental health evaluation.
All right, thank you. Mr. McLean?
Mr. Wilkerson, Your Honor, is 52. He's applied for disability. It's primarily, he's at 99%. It's physical disability. His right hand is messed up. He has also worked in the past with First Step. He knows and does roofing. He asked the court to set a bond that is fair under the circumstances. Those were basically his instructions. He does not expect, he specifically does not expect a miracle, but he would like just an appropriate bond, as he put it.
And Mr. Howard, did you get that PI case number, please?
Oh, you still? All right, hold on. Let me get
Got it.
25 P. You got it?
Yeah, 25 PI 000947.
Yeah.
Okay. It's got another CWAC charge. Okay. On each count, it's going to be $1,500 for all four charges. So that's going to be $3,000 for position 20 and $3,000 for position 21. This is going to be a cash bond only for both cases. We're going to reset both cases along with 24 CR 003923J to the February 18th calendar. No further contact with Johnny. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last name.
It's Win and
Win.
YUN.
YUN, okay? And stay away from all model property until further order of the court. And with regards to position 21, stay away from the public library and at Auburn Avenue, and no further contact with Nut Lum. Thank you. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. Mr. McLean, I'll let you decide whether a social worker visit is recommended.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next court date for all three cases is February 18th. Okay, courtroom 2, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, we're ready to go back to position number 18.
Thank you. All right, and I think Mr. McLean, I believe you finished your argument?
Oh, let's see, we were on Wilkerson, were we not?
Yes, with
I'm sorry.
for his brother, Tracy Howard. I'm not sure if you had presented your side of the argument.
I don't think I had it. DeMarcus Smith. Basically, Your Honor, 10th grade education, 34 years old, been in Georgia all his life. Works for UPS doing truck loading and has for many years. And he'd asked the court to set the bond as low as possible, including a signature bond if that were possible, or 1,000 surety if not.
Bond is set at $1,000 on each count. That's going to be a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services level 2. No alcoholic beverages, no illegal drugs, no weapons, and no firearms, and to stay 200 yards away from the area identified as 3601 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. He will be subject to random screens by pretrial for alcohol and or illegal drugs. If he fails to screen, or if he gets arrested again, or if he fails to report to pretrial twice a month, his bond will be revoked. Thank you.
Position number 15, Mullen. Come on.
15, okay. This is Parrish Mullen, accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property in a family violence context. Case number 25 CR 565F. Alleged incident date is February 4th, 2025. Mr. Mullen, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors?
2020 battery DV out of Forsyth. Yeah, you got battery trespass first offender, 2018 and 19 probation, another 2018 probation. That's it.
Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an incident from the 4th. So yesterday at about 9:20 p.m., police were called to 8895 Willow Brae, that's WILLOBRAE Lane in Roswell. There they met with the defendant's mother, Melinda Parrish. She reported that he lives in the basement, that he became irate, and he had damaged her property. Police saw multiple holes punched in the wall, the drywall there of her residence. We spoke with Mrs. Melinda Parrish today. She says that they'd gotten into an argument and he was agitated. This is not the first time. He first went into the basement where he's staying and started to destroy his own property. She said she called the police because she wanted him to leave. He would not calm down. This is the second time he's done this. The first time was a few months ago, that he's got a temper, and she's okay with him returning to the residence, and will be on Zoom. So if you would call for Mrs. Parrish, please. We're asking for a $2,000 surety, Your Honor. I would note that not only does he have that first offender battery, family violence, 2 counts, battery 2 counts, and criminal trespass out of Forsyth, he's got a prior DUI, and he's currently, it looks like, in a custody battle. So he's, I guess, living with his mother, but also paying child support. I'm not sure if he's working or what his situation is. But we'd ask for a mental health evaluation and to follow any recommendations, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and no violent contact.
All right. Miss Melinda Parrish, if you're on Zoom, this will be the time to unmute and start your video if you want to. All right.
Yes.
Parrish, if you'd like to contribute, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, I do.
All right. Does he pay rent?
No, he does not at this time.
All right. And I have an address, 70 Church Street in Beaufort, Georgia. Do you know what that address is?
That was a home that my husband and I owned that he and his ex lived in. They no longer, when they split, he moved in to our basement here at our present home about a year ago. So,
and can you explain to me on what grounds should I release him back into your home?
So Parrish is a good person. He's actually a really wonderful dad and good human being. He's had a pretty rough go of it. Doesn't excuse anything, but he's had a pretty bad year and a pretty tumultuous custody battle, and times when he didn't get to see his kids for a period of time, which was a very hard time for him. He's had a hard time getting work. Work has been hard with what he does to keep employed and landscape, and just has had a pretty bad time. Doesn't excuse behaviors, but I have no fear. There's no fear of my son. I care and love my son very much. The reason for me calling last night was no intention to have him jailed or put in jail. It was literally to just try and help control the situation last night when he was just very upset.
Okay, thank you. Please mute your screen. Mr. McLean, anything else to add?
Your Honor, his education, he's 26. His education is 10th grade. He, in the landscaping business, sometimes it is feast or famine, or and they do have trouble getting business sometimes. But when he's got business contracts coming in, he's actually able to help 2 employees or independent contractors or whatever they are. They help him out. So he has a name for his business. Like I said, he's 26 and has been in Georgia all his life. We'd ask the court to consider the lowest bond possible, even if that would be a signature bond that I'm asking for, Your Honor. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Mullen is going to get an opportunity to come out of the basement more often than he'd like. On the criminal trespass, it's going to be a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial. It's going to be a level 3 reporting, which means, Mr. Mullen, you're going to be reporting to pretrial once a week. Once a week, you're going to have to make a trip downtown Atlanta, not downtown in Forsyth County, and you're going to meet your pretrial officer. You're also going to enroll in a domestic violence program where you're going to attend and complete all 26 weeks of classes to understand the concept of family violence and how to avoid it. No further violent contact with Melinda Parrish. If she is permitting it, you may return to the home you live or to the basement where you live. But you might want to make yourself useful by repairing any damages that are the property, and perhaps even do yard work for your mother. And maybe that will earn you some money to pay for your classes. No illegal drugs, no alcoholic beverages. You will be subject to random screens, and no weapons and no firearms. Your next court date will be sent to your address at Willowbrae Lane. If you change your address, make sure you let the court know immediately. Thank you. Oh, if you get into any further altercations or if you get arrested again, this $3,000 signature bond will be revoked. Thank you.
Position number 17, Ramos.
Hunter Ramos is accused of criminal trespass causing damage to property, and there's two separate counts, both of them in the family violence context from December 14th of last year. Accusation 25 CR 564H. Mr. Ramos, you've been advised of your rights and your attorney is Mr. McLean. Any priors, please?
I got first.
Okay. Ms. Allen?
Thank you, Your Honor. That's my information as well. Police were called on December the 14th, 2024 at about 3:50 in the morning. They were called to 165 Overlake Court or Circle, excuse me, Overlake Circle in Johns Creek. The victim who lives there is Dana Fitchko, Fitchko. She was described as highly emotional and fearful of the defendant when police spoke with her. Police saw that the residence and interior, it was obvious that there'd been some kind of an altercation. Things were in disarray. There were multiple Christmas trees that were artificial Christmas trees that were damaged. There was a television that had been ripped off the wall and destroyed. She reported that she and the defendant, who eventually she admitted lived with her, got into an argument and that he became angry and damaged her property. Police identify in the documents that the defendant's parents live across the street, and they went across the street and spoke to his father, Robert Ramos, who reported that the defendant has lived there at the 165 Overlake Circle address with his girlfriend for the last 2 years, that they frequently argue, and he often goes to a friend's house when that happens. He's charged with 2 counts of criminal trespass for damaging multiple items. He also created multiple holes in the door of her interior bedroom. We're asking for a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial. We'd ask for anger awareness or family violence intervention programming, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and no violent contact. We did speak to the victim, Mrs. Dana Fitchko, today, and she said that they're in a relationship and they live together. She confirmed that he damaged her property, but that she only wanted him to leave the residence, which the state believes is frankly an untrue statement based on how her demeanor was on the scene at the night. She clearly was in crisis, and this isn't the first time. But she does report that they've been together since. If you would call for Mrs. Fitchko, thank you.
All right. Ms. Fitchko, Dana Fitchko, if you want to contribute to the proceedings, this will be the time to start your video and unmute.
Hello, I don't know how to do.
If the host wants to prompt her to start her video, there we go. All right.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Fitchko, if you'd like to raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you own or rent the property that you live in?
I own.
Oh, okay. And is Mr. Ramos on the mortgage or the?
No, ma'am. I just recently purchased a house for my mother.
Oh, for your mother?
From my mother.
Oh,
from my parents.
I see.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And under what circumstances should I let Mr. Ramos continue to live with you?
Honestly, this was a huge misunderstanding. I understand the call and everything, but we had no idea about any of this until his incident yesterday when he was pulled over.
No, I'm sorry, no idea about what?
No idea that there was even a warrant or anything. When the officers were at my house and asked if I wanted to press charges, I said, no, sir, not at all. I said, his parents live across the street. I just wanted to be we just needed to be separated for the evening. and the time they left me a card and said, if you need anything else, give us a call. And that was the last we heard of it until Hunter called me yesterday, saying that he was getting arrested. So again, I feel this is a huge honestly, crazy situation.
It's perfectly clear as crystal to me, but that's okay. Anything else?
No, ma'am, and I'm not concerned about him or worried about him at all. He's a very
When officers respond to a crisis moment and they determine that it's family violence, it doesn't matter that the victim wants to drop charges or doesn't want to pursue it or anything to that effect. The ultimate decision is up to the prosecutor. The officer is required to fill out a report and the case gets referred to the supervising officer or whoever's in charge, and they make a determination of whether a warrant should be issued based on the domestic violence context. So even though you were asked whether you want to press charges, it may just have been a courtesy request because in family violence, once that occurs, no longer is it your business, now it's our business.
Yes, ma'am, I did not know.
That's why I'm telling you, it's clear as
Thank you.
All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McLean, there's a recommendation for a signature bond. On each count, it's going to be $1,500. This is going to be a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 1. Mr. Ramos, you can have a release bond, but please understand that contrary to Ms. Fitchko's statements, this is an open, active case against you. So you are required to make sure that you maintain a current address and that you comply with the conditions. The conditions are no further violent contact with Dana Fitchko. You may continue to reside at the location with Ms. Fitchko if she allows you to continue residing there. Within 30 days of being released, you will enroll and complete a 26-week domestic violence intervention program. You have to pay for those classes at your expense and complete all 26 classes without missing or skipping any. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. And if you fail to report to pretrial once a month, or if you get arrested again or violate any of the conditions of the bond, your bond can be revoked. Thank you.
Your Honor, what were the figures there?
1,500 on each count, so that's 3,000 signature bond for pretrial.
Thank you.
Position 4, Kane.
This is J. Montez Kane, C-A-I-N-E, accused of battery from November 15, 2024, case number 25CR573E. Mr. Kane, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. McLeod. Any prize, Mr. Howard?
All right, so bear with me. 19 total.
Okay.
Open cruelty in the first out of Clayton County. Terrorist threats, obstruction, criminal damage to property, 2nd degree, interference with government property. Got an open case in Fulton, ag assault, riot, and penal institution, 23 SC 191151. Open ag assault, 23 SC 191183. On probation in Fulton, ag assault, 23 SC 190592. Theft by taking, 23 SC 190538. Couple of probations from last year, 2022, possession of a knife or firearm during a commission obstruction conviction, and 2019 simple battery conviction. That's it.
Ms. Mulcahy?
Yes, Your Honor. The defendant also has a criminal trespass. I filed that one down a little later, but it should be there now. The incident location is 3164 Cushman Circle Southwest in Atlanta. The victim in this case is Keith Sanders. The victim told officers that the defendant was knocking at his door, and after a few knocks, the defendant came to his window. The defendant then began pushing the window, trying to gain entry into the residence while armed with a machete and a rock, and the victim proceeded to call the police. The defendant then broke the window and also swung the machete at the window. He then struck the victim in the head with a rock, and officers noted the defendant had a severe laceration behind his ear. There were two witnesses believed to be the defendant's sister and girlfriend. They didn't provide much information to the police, but they did state the defendant told the victim things were about to get ugly. Our office has spoken with Mr. Sanders, who states that the defendant is the son of his neighbor. He states that prior to this incident, the defendant had come to his apartment and stolen some of his belongings. He did confirm the events in the warrant, stated he wants no contact with the defendant and wants him to stay away from his residence. The defendant currently has a $5,000 surety bond. We would just ask, given the facts of this case and his history, that that bond remain the same. No further contact with the victim. Stay away from the incident location. No drugs, weapons, or alcohol while out on bond. And I would ask the court to sound for Mr. Zakeith Sanders.
Ms. Sanders, if you'd like to contribute, this is the time to unmute and start your video.
Your Honor, I believe it's a Mr. Sanders.
Oh, Mr. Sanders, excuse me.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, no one's responding. Yes, Ms. McLeod?
Your Honor, my client is not in a position to pay for bond. He tells me that he's currently unemployed and had been held in custody for several months. He believes this is a case of mistaken identity, Your Honor. He tells me that he does not know the alleged victim. So I would ask the court to consider as low a bond as possible for him, because otherwise he will not be able to make bond and get out of jail.
I'm just so you've read the warrant, Ms. McLeod?
I have, Your Honor, yes.
You're saying that the victim does not know him?
He says he does not know who Mr. Sanders is, and he has no recollection of this particular incident, and he believes that the victim has probably mistaken him for someone else.
Okay. On the battery charge, it's going to be $3,500. On the trespass, it's going to be $1,500. That's a $5,000 surety bond. He's to stay 200 yards away from 3164 Cushman Circle in Southwest Atlanta. Have no contact with Zakeith Sanders. To stay 200 yards away from Mr. Sanders, and no illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. According to the booking screen, he has 2 probation holds at the present time. So those will be the other matters that are holding him at the jail. His next court date is going to be February 18th. Thank you.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I only see one charge. You see two?
I see 2. It's on the they filed it, and it's on Odyssey. It's trespass, battery, and criminal trespass.
Okay, and will you give me that breakdown again?
Sure, $3,500 for the battery and $1,500 for the trespass.
How much for the trespass?
$1,500.
15. Okay, thank you.
I would ask the court for some clarification about the distance, 200 feet. I believe it's an apartment complex. 200 yards.
Yes.
Yes, I believe it's an apartment complex, Your Honor, where he lives. He lives at the apartment complex. I believe, based on what he says, that he lives on a different floor from the address given by the alleged victim.
No, ma'am. He's going to have to leave that complex. He cannot return to that complex.
See.
There's an allegation of a weapon being used, so I'm not going to let him be in that complex. Next court date is February 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Position number 6, 12.
Okay.
Do we want to do this one last potentially, or a
Well, we don't
breakout?
have anybody else in the courtroom. He's on my last person in the courtroom.
He is? Okay. In that case, let me see. Will the host, Miss Grace, can you come stop the live stream?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Your Honor.
I have Lori's iPhone.
That
Lori,
is mother, Your Honor.
that's his mother?
Yes, Your Honor.